this over a little bit. How's it going, everybody? It's going to be one of those live streams where I just try to alienate everyone all at once, throw them all under the bus. Of course, I'm kidding. First and foremost, though, I want to thank Oana, Nick McDonald, Michael Boyer, and Leo Zero. I don't know why I'm saying it with a Spanish accent, but I guess I've just been in Ecuador for a long time. For becoming patrons and encourage everyone out there to also become a patron and join our secret streams. I am doing this live stream on this topic tonight, partly because the community voted for it, but also because uh, I've really been trying to pay attention to what's happening in the world. For obvious reasons, it kind of seems like extinction is a distinct possibility por ahora. and that's not real cool. So, a lot of time analyzing, really thinking about it, and looking at both sides, trying to be objective. Um, and I've noticed a lot of things that I think may be of value, and a lot of things that I think are lost on a lot of folks out there. Um, and it seems to me that a lot of our problems, the fundamentally the biggest ones, the stuff that we really need to address post haste, um, is all rooted in people just adopting a narrative, and it's something I know that I rail about all the time on this channel. But it's like people, they'll migrate from religion to religion. What none of it is right, none of it's good. It's actually designed, and China is so good at what they do. I think one of the big problems on the left in particular right now is that people really, really are naive about propaganda, how it works, and how sophisticated the entities are that are creating this stuff. I would just ask everyone to consider that. Look at Joe Biden, for example. And again, in case you're new to the channel, I'm not a right winger. I didn't like Donald Trump. It's not why I'm saying this. But Joe Biden is it's a joke. It's a completely insane joke. The man can barely form a coherent sentence. And if you think about the fact that some of the most powerful people in the world, right, that are great strategists, they're Ivy League educated, they're totally elite. They have access to, they can hire a building full of geniuses with supercomputers to think for them, you know? And one of the primary characteristics of a good leader is that you leave nothing, no variable to chance, right? This is like one of the fundamental things that you're going to do as a captain of a ship, or you're leading an army platoon, whatever it is. One of your main jobs is to control all the variables. So I find it hard to understand how it is that anyone in their right mind, right or left, whoever. Okay, so I guess we did lose me for a second. I'm not really sure where. Um, Damn it, it really screws with my conceptual continuity to have that sort of issue. Let's see if these people jump back on. Probably not. I don't know where you guys lost me, but basically I was talking about the puppet show, and the fact that the Trumpers really seemed to believe he was sort of like this rogue that was anti-establishment and going to tear down the deep state and stuff, and they would have shot him like well before. You know what I mean? It's all a show. And I think if we all really suddenly became aware that we actually do have common interests, like pretty much everything about our lives, right? Uh, we have the same interests. People generally want the same thing. They want peace and the pursuit of happiness, whatever that means to them. Basically, the things that were described in the Constitution, that's all people want. And so we have, uh, the propaganda engines. The primary thing that they do is convince people that the other side doesn't have the same interests, and that if the interests of the side are fulfilled, then their wishes and dreams will be destroyed. And it's not true. Everyone wants basically the same thing, right? There might be a difference of opinion about how to get there, but what I'm telling you is that most of those differences of opinion are manufactured. Um, the truth is that hybridization of all of these different systems that were created by highly intelligent people over the centuries will yield a functional system that is able to more or less meet the needs of everyone without restricting the rights of anyone unduly or unnecessarily or unfairly. This is absolutely true. And anyone that believes otherwise believes what they believe because their beliefs have been engineered by someone who is protecting their own interests, right? The eye on the sky at the top of the pyramid. And, a lot of people rightly point out that right now the left seems to have lost its mind. They're unwittingly embracing fascism. And it's true and it's fair. But the right needs to have some self awareness and realize that they're fucking hurt in disaster too. I was doing a little bit of research, I guess, prior to starting the live stream, and I looked up a 20 stupid things said by left wingers and 20 stupid things said by right wingers, and it was really revelatory. Um, uh, and also, I'm trying to keep this focused, but I have to mention this while we're on the subject. Right wingers calling the left stupid is a little bit difficult to stomach because you're not going to find a left wing flat earther, for one thing. It's not going to happen, right? And if you look back at a lot of the things that were said by Trump supporters, it's mind bogglingly fucking stupid. At the same time, though, this list that the left had compiled of stupid things that the right had said, some of the things that they listed were absolutely terrifying. I think I left a list up. Let me have a look here. I hope I did, anyways. I meant to. Oh, did I accidentally close it? Um, well, I remember. One example is that they actually had on the list of stupid things right wingers say. Uh, Something about one of the right wing politicians has said, trust reestablishing trust in the government is not the answer. That was on the list of stupid things that Rolling Stone magazine was saying that the right had said. That's stupid, you know. What I'm really getting at here is that, and I say this all the time, but what they do is they mix fact and fiction, lies and truth, smart things and dumb things, and then they roll these shitballs down both sides of the aisle so that each side gets some pure, wise, intelligent truth and some fecal matter because you've been conditioned since birth by your grandparents, your parents, your communities, and your schools to accept certain things on like a doctrinal basis. Uh, and people aren't really completely stupid. So if it was all stupid, it couldn't work. So they very carefully ball up these mixtures of, truth and lies, and people just eat it up because they've been conditioned to. And so what we have to do is transcend our conditioning. We have to depolarize because if we achieve unity, we cannot be manipulated. And my main motivation for doing this live stream tonight is that I have noticed over the last 20 years, the right wing has been liberalizing, which, I've said that before, and I know a lot of right wingers would absolutely hate it, but it's true. Liberals were right about an awful lot of stuff. And a lot of the things that the right wingers hate that the liberals are doing right now, the right wingers used to be the ones that did it. So we have this kind of screwy situation where the characteristics of the parties have kind of drifted and sort of scrambled everything. So it's not as simple as it once was. And people have anchoring bias, they have heuristic bias. So you tend, especially if you're older, you tend to see the world through these lenses that you've become accustomed to. And I even noticed myself over the last few years that I hadn't really noticed the changes in the right wing, partly because I pay no attention to politics until the last couple of years. And I've only done that because, the world is going to fucking eat me if I don't do something, and convince everyone else to stand up and do something, right? And then these behaviors that the liberals and the left used to hate so much about the right have stopped doing it, and the left has started doing it. It's like, that game of hot potato? It's like the puppet masters have got people just tossing the shit ball back and forth at this point. And so the point finger pointing becomes like spinning in a circle. I mean, it's really truly mind-boggling. But the thing that people are missing is that we are in agreement about more than ever. Uh, I think a lot of younger right wingers don't really realize that this insane prison state, a lot of that was created by right wing ideology. And so, it's really difficult with the severity and the threat level that people associated with the right wing, rightly so, in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Like, come on, the right wing was fucking horrific and ignorant. And, there's still a lot more of that. Something I want to mention too, just to make sure that I get there, is that one of the things the puppet masters really love to do is focus on the most extreme outliers of each side, right? And I've seen this where people have gotten it on their cell phones. So you'll have like big media like CNN, and there'll be this like little group of heroin addict, blue haired like that that the Fox is like that's BLM, and then CNN does the same thing. They find a little group of white supremacists on the right, and behind them at the protest there's 20,000 people that are totally reasonable and protesting, they're supposed to, and then the media will focus on this little group of extremists. The right is terrible about this, and so is the left, like believing it. They'll say things that are just so extreme and ridiculous that the entire left just loves criminality, and that they want to destroy America, even though their livelihood is totally dependent upon it flourishing. These things that are fed to them by the media that absolutely have no real foundational basis at all. Um, I'm a little bit surprised that people are falling for the communist thing. There are a few left wingers out there that are communist. That is true. They do exist. But, if you find your average liberal on the street and ask them what they think of communism, they're going to be totally opposed to it. And then, another level of that is that the socialism is like it's like this it's like the inward of the political arena, right? It's like this like terrible blasphemous thing that you just never should utter. But I happen to be a little bit worldly, and my YouTube channel is medium big, right? So I talk to people from Europe and places like Denmark, Iceland, Norway, uh, places where socialism has been hybridized with capitalism. And the great example is that most of my American supporters will say like, man, I wish I could support more, but I don't have any money. And then the people that send me like substantial contributions, probably 85% of the time, they're from democratic socialist countries. So if it's just if you're doomed to poverty because you live in a socialistic or a democratic socialist country, I sure the fuck can't tell, because the people that have the time and money to fly out here and pay me to drink ayahuasca or Just send contributions through PayPal or Zelle, which I would encourage you to do. They're all from democratic socialist countries. They're happy. They say they have the best system in the world, a lot of them. Um, so, you really have to look at actual real world evidence and not listen to stop regurgitating the fucking narratives of your parents and their parents and your political party. You know what I mean? Just stop it. They're all full of shit. They're all full of shit. About half of the shit the right wingers think, man, I wish I hadn't deleted that thing because there was some insane, insane stuff. It's still hard to believe that people would say this shit. But then they also have good points. I mean, the left screaming about fascism all the time. Why are you in jail? You know what I mean? That was a good point that I saw on one of these right wing sites. Um, but then there's also a lot of stupid shit. They're like demonizing liberal women because they don't shave their armpits. I mean, really? Like it's even true of all of them, or even more than a tiny minority of them. Uh, Yeah, but more to the point, man, what we have to do is find our common ground. This rhetoric, right against left, black against white, the race thing, they are really, really, really leveraging that to create division. And what I was saying about the skill of the propagandists, the modern propagandists, is that they usually are convincing the people that turn out to be the oppressors to whatever degree that they're taking the moral high ground, and they're very good. This is the way they trick liberals a lot. You're protecting people by, limiting your freedom, limiting your rights. People think they're doing the right thing. So, the carrot is that you're taking the moral high ground, and in reality, you are falling for a trap. And, the right wing likes to talk about how horrible the left is with censorship, but I can remember most of my life. If we were on the left, I used to identify as a left person. We were fighting for our freedom, the right wing conservatives. You didn't even want to visit southern states because of the chance of being beaten to death by a cop just because you have long hair, or having pot planted on you because they think you're a hippie and you deserve to be in prison for the. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of modern right wingers, you guys have come a long way, but you have to understand that this is not historically how things have been. Um, and then the right wingers talk about constitutional freedom and constitutional rights, and how a lot of what the liberals are doing right now is moving towards fascism, and that's true. But look at Nancy Reagan saying that suspected drug dealers should be shot on sight. I mean, can you imagine if she hadn't been stopped by some liberal? You know what I mean? If the Democrats hadn't fought her, so don't get up on your high horse if you're right leaning, because you guys have got a lot to atone for. And I mean, the whatever you're pointing your finger at the other side for, you can go back 20 years and it was your side that was doing it, you know? So, and another thing that the right does that's absolutely amazing is that they think they're like taking down the man, and going after the establishment when they're actually like propaganda horns for big oil. Kind of the way it looks to me at this point is like big pharma versus big oil. And I don't know what they've got against each other, because you would think that the primary shareholders would be the same small group of people, right at the very top. But maybe the petroleum that they use to manufacture all the pills is too expensive, and Big Pharma's pissed. I'm not really sure exactly what's going on there, but that's kind of how it looks like. It's big business that's obviously controlling both sides, but it seems like it's a slightly different um, group on each side. And big oil seems to be the main puppet masters in the church of the right wing, and then big pharma Oh, well, in the military-industrial complex. Man, a lot of it's really confusing now too, because I hear a lot of right-wingers saying, that that the Democrats love war and it's the war party and all this stuff. I have never been to an anti-war demonstration that was anything but a bunch of Democrats. There's no Republicans ever at an anti-war. They're always yelling about, support our soldiers and all this stuff. So where is this coming from? What are you talking about? I mean, maybe it will help if we watch our rhetoric so that we're specific. Like, are we talking about the politicians when we say the left and right, or are we talking about the proletariat, the voting base? Because these are not the same things, you know. They're just not. So, and now to get a little mystical, because that's really what this channel is. It's not really, I mean, it is mysticism, because mysticism really just means that, the mystery, right? But in this particular case, this is completely and entirely backed by solid, sound science. Um, our ability to create the world that we live in and to influence events, even just the general state of mind of other people on a lower vibratory scale, right, is so exponentially increased every time we harmonize any two people, say, much less millions and millions and millions. It used to be easier to polarize people. They could use really basic stuff like marijuana. The right used to think that people that smoked pot belonged in prison for the rest of their lives or killed even. Um, I had some cowboys in Colorado try to kill my wife and I because we had dreadlocks one time. Um, they were driving by. It was right after 9/11, and they were driving by in a pickup truck and they got big chunks of rock and they were going like 50 miles an hour and they kept driving past and throwing them at us and calling us terrorists. Um, and once again, we have the liberals now using the same rhetoric to demonize whoever they don't like, calling them terrorists. And 20 years ago, it was the right doing the exact same fucking thing. And I've been saying for a long, long time that these parties are puppeted by the same people. And I think the fact that they employ the same strategies, you know, um, is a pretty good indicator that it's actually true, that it's really the same people. Um, but what I was getting at is that they used to be able to take like really basic things and pit people against each other. Now they're having to take it to like really weird extreme places, like the gender pronoun thing. Somehow we're using that as a wedge issue. I mean, you guys have to understand what wedge issues are. Like, how could you take, we are on the verge of World War III. We've just had this crazy thing going on with, right? Uh, and we have people arguing about how many sexes there are. This is like a major point of contention for people. This is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. I mean, it's up there. It's up there. Actually, you know what? Let me see if I can find this 50 dumb things said by right wingers. Because what it actually is it shows how dumb both sides of the parties actually, or, both sides of the political spectrum actually are. Oh, here we go. Here it is. In Rolling Stone magazine. And you remember when rock and roll was about being an outlaw and a rebel and all this stuff, and they're telling you that you're an idiot if you say that we should question the government? Um, I mean, Texas Representative Steve Stockman, the best thing about the earth is that you can poke holes in it and oil and gas come out. Fuck that guy. And then there was the conflict in Syria. Little kids are getting gassed and blown up. Sarah Palin says, let Allah sort it out. Right? That's why people hate these people. And in this guy, you guys talk about constitutional law and how the left doesn't understand it. On the right, they're constantly talking about that. This Oklahoma representative, Jim Bridenstine, just because the Supreme Court rules on something doesn't necessarily mean that it's constitutional. Yes, it does. That's exactly what it means. That's the whole point of the Supreme Court. Or here's a great one. Texas Representative Republican Joe Barton, the Great Flood is an example of climate change, and that certainly wasn't because mankind overdeveloped hydrocarbon energy. That's what your leadership says. Like, are you serious? We all know Al Qaeda has camps on the Mexican border. Uh-huh. Oh my God. Um, let's find another great one. When a physician removes a child from a woman, it's the largest organ in her body. Okay, here's a good example though of the left saying this guy's saying something stupid when it actually totally makes sense. To have women serving in infantry could impair the mission essential tasks of those units, and that's been proven in study after study. It's nature. This is on the list of the 50 dumbest things that right wingers have said. Women are not unequal to men overall, but in terms of like physical strength and you know, there's nothing wrong about what that guy said. Women are not going to have the same performance capabilities in combat that men do. And it's just biological. That's not misogyny. It's reality, you know? So, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff where it's a great example of how they do it with these parties, They're just mixing truth and lies together. Hold on, let me catch up with the chat a little bit. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The left is the right and the right is wrong. That's pretty much where we're at this point. Nothing like a world war to clear the air. Man, you guys are killing it over there in the chat right now. Akratia? English has no word for it. Anarchy? Yeah, okay. So, I'm a little bit tired, so I know I'm unfocused tonight. I apologize for that. But, being on the brink of World War III, I just figured it would be better to come on here and try to say something than to just do nothing. Uh, you know, um, and one of the main themes of this channel in my life and everything, I try to prove it with the way that I live, and I observe it all the time. And I'm not the only one that's noticed, people like Robert Anton Wilson, who you all should read if you haven't, everything that he ever wrote, Terrence McKenna, Tim Leary, all these people that these loony ass writers always say worked for the CIA, like these interdimensionals are writing these scripts for these guys because they all work for the federal government too. I mean, come on, you guys. Um, but what I'm saying is that I really do believe that it's possible and it's natural for us to be in a state of mind where we don't really need to be governed. And throughout my life and in my own life, um, well, Charles, I think if they want to, they should probably be allowed to. But I'm just saying that for Rolling Stone magazine to put that quote on a list of the 50 dumbest things ever said by right wingers, when it's actually just totally true, that's the kind of shit that I'm talking about here. And we could do the same thing with a right wing publication. I went to their list of the dumbest things that the left says, and a lot of it was totally stuff that the left is totally. Man, I got to do something about this internet connection. It is possible to cultivate a state of mind, to create a society um, where people don't need to be governed. And I think that creating a situation where people are dependent upon the government, where they trust the government, where they have all these weird naive delusions, it has to be engineered. You know what I mean? It actually, not only is it natural for us to be able to be responsible for ourselves and still have freedom, at least to a far greater extent than we're currently allowed. It not only is that natural, but I think it takes a tremendous effort to keep people from realizing it and to convince them of their dependency, their need for protection, um, and the receptivity to bullshit. That is also a very carefully engineered circumstance. Um, and I've done fairly well tonight, not mentioning any of the things that I'm not allowed to talk about. I'm getting better at this. Also, you guys watch out for the Rumble links. I am going to start streaming on Rumble. We're just getting settled into this crazy place. I wish there was more light so you guys could see behind me. It's really ridiculous. Um, but uh, long story short, we're having so much technical difficulty getting good internet in this country that it's sort of slowing me down, getting the ball rolling. Uh, but that's really the thing, you guys, dude. I'm trying to be more careful about it. You guys got to be more careful about it. So we need to not polarize. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Everybody wants the same thing. We're all working towards the same goals. And you know, as like the main wedge issues, I guess, the things that divide opinion the most, to the point where we're on the verge of civil war, even. And the reality is that compromises in those uh, arenas are not only possible, but they would actually solve um, the problems that come from total commitment to one political doctrine or the other. Uh, so, that's the amazing thing. The answers to a lot of this stuff really are just a cunt hair away from our attainment. Personally, I think that a cap on wealth, people that believe that people should just be able to get richer and richer, and for the fact that the did I lose the internet again? No. Um, it invariably do so uh, by means of exploitation economies. And if you eliminate this just ridiculous excess, it's not. It's just not necessary. Um, and right now we have somebody like Elon Musk, who I think was pushing or exceeded $250 billion. I mean, you guys know how many times you could stack that to the moon and back? You could probably Google it, but I'm not even going to venture to guess, but I know it's a lot of times. Um, there's no reason for that. It's just you've won. Once you're a billionaire, you have hard as you could ever possibly need to. You know, and it's just doctrine. It's just brainwashing that has people convinced that they should defend Elon Musk's right to have $250 billion. It just makes no sense. Um, oh, that's one of my favorite. Doesn't matter, dude. He's still, putting a cap on wealth at $500 million in total assets. That is so goddamn rich that if you complain about that shit, you should be brought straight to the gallows. In my opinion, you're just a complete piece of shit. Um, Complete fucking piece of shit. I mean, how can you say it's never worked? It's never been tried. I don't think. Um, One of the main reasons that it's possible to control and manipulate the lower and middle classes is that they don't have any fucking money. So you have a choice. The lower and middle classes can continue to lose all of their freedoms and to have all their what little they do have taken away, or you can put some restrictions on the wealthy. Is this okay? Looks like it's man. The internet here is really a problem, isn't it? You know what I mean? You got to choose your battles. It's it's just how it is. Um, well, you know, Mr. Charles, maybe I can give some thought to that, and we could do an entire live stream about it. But I'm not really trying to become a politician. I'm just making some points here that the exorbitant wealth and the gap in the wealth is there by design because it is what facilitates their control. So you know that fact I think is unarguable because it wouldn't be the case, you know, if things were otherwise. So you know, if you have a better idea, I'm all for it. But equalization is the way to harmonization, and um, really what I'm ultimately aiming for is a change in the fundamental consciousness of people that these regulations wouldn't be necessary. That's really kind of what I'm getting at. And that is where, you know, maybe I'm too much of a utopian, but I do believe that these imbalances are tolerated and it's created in the first place because of an engineered mentality, and that it's possible to take our consciousness in a direction where people just aren't compelled to do these crazy fucking things. Well, they're all controlled economies. I mean, this is just more right wing influence thinking. Um, you know what I mean? They're all controlled economies. The U.S. is just okay. Here's this is one of the dumb things that the right wingers uh, posted, that rich people are usually rich. Let's see if I can find the exact. Here it is. Uh, some cultures are better than other ones, and so we need to put a wall between ourselves and the terrible ones. That's cute. And they listed like France and Germany as the terrible. Uh, I gotta find this quote about the rich people. It is just so blatantly and completely wrong that it just blows my mind that anyone would ever say this. Yeah, I mean, basically, rich people are rich because they work hard and make sacrifices. If you actually look at the statistics on this, like 90% of successful entrepreneurs come from upper middle class families and had, uh, what do you call them, trust funds. You know what I mean? And that is an engineered, controlled economy. Like it's, it doesn't. Capitalism, in theory, is not what you have in practice in the United States. You know what they're telling you is happening is not what's happening. The wealth is concentrated into the hands of certain people, and it does not escape. And it's been increasingly concentrated. So, you know, if you're talking about how that happens in Marxist and communist societies, it's happening in the United States also. So it's it's not the systems. If you look around the world, it happens everywhere eventually. So I don't know why we're fighting all the time about isms, you know, communism, socialism, capitalism. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and when it becomes difficult for them to manage, people die. Lots of people die. And when now that things have gotten to such an extreme extent that they have at the current juncture, they're potentially going to wipe out us. You know, in the United States, we've had this sort of false sense of security that we're untouchable, but it's not true. It's definitely not true. Anarcho-Gnosticism. That's exactly it. And I do believe that it's possible. I know it's possible. In fact, That's what Adam Weishaupt from the Illuminati was actually trying to do. That's why he was infiltrating the Masonic lodges. And if you actually look at his writings, it had nothing to do with controlling everyone. It just had to do with getting rid of religion, which is where the whole accusation of Satanism comes from. Because whenever the Christian right hears anyone say "get rid of religion," they're like, "It's the devil, burn it," you know. Um, but it is totally anarcho-Gnosticism is exactly. I love you too, Paul. Is exactly what it's the only answer. It's the only answer, you guys. Really, we have two choices: anarcho-Gnosticism or fucking doom. That's it. There's no other possibility. And so, I'm kind of on the fence about how that'll happen. And if I just go based on my own like visions and intuition from contemplating this over the years and psychedelic experiences and just these weird downloads that I've gotten, which I don't take them 100% seriously. You can't do that. Then again, there has been a high degree of accuracy to a lot of the stuff that's come to me in that way, so I at least consider it. And I think that after a tremendous amount of destruction, this a much smaller population could sort of reset. Everybody's talking about the Great Reset, and maybe what it actually is going to be a huge surprise. I used to say, probably 20 years ago that what I expected to happen is that the psychopaths and the zombies and all of these people that are in the way eventually will all kill each other, and then the ones of us that are left are going to be the enlightened gnosis having, psychedelic, whatever, however you want to think about it. Yeah, I mean, people got awfully mad at me in like 2020 or something when COVID hit, and they were originally talking about the vaccine, and I was saying like, look, it's not that I'm an anti-vaxxer. It's just that you can't, the population control is what things like mosquitoes and viruses are there for. And unnaturally preserving genetics that should not survive is not going to be good for the species. And people are like, "Oh, you sick fuck," and it's like, I didn't write the rules to nature, dude. you know it's a weird thing that people do, that like if you make an observation about reality, people oftentimes accuse you of supporting that, like you, because you know something, you are supporting it. I don't understand how that's a you know what I mean. Not what it's not what that is. But Charles, I kind of agree. And in much that's when I was younger and I guess more idealistic, it's easier for me to believe that we could, have some sort of global revelation that would lift us up above the shadows of history and allow us to almost transcend duality. And I'm still not totally convinced that that's impossible. But now that I've traveled around the world and I realize the size of like cities like New York and Los Angeles, and now I've been to South America, and I've seen how many goddamn lunatics there are everywhere, and it's a little bit more difficult to imagine a change in consciousness where everyone suddenly gets it, you know. But then again, you guys, it's definitely not. No, I would talk about the necessity of population control more if it didn't make people so goddamn mad. Like I said, that people confuse like observation and analysis with like support for an idea. Like, I've tried really hard to be clear when I've talked about this stuff in the past and say, look, it's not that I agree with this or like it, but some of the conditions in the universe are dictated to us and not by us. And, facts don't care about your feelings. um, yeah, I mean, and there's definitely analogies are hella true. Like a human has a cancer. If you look at the way that cities spread, when I was a kid on the eastern seaboard, there was actually distance between the cities. And when I went back to visit after being gone for 15 years or so, Washington D.C. had almost connected with Richmond, which is 2 hours, 2.5 hour drive on the Beltway. So and the way that it happens, it's like first it's suburbs creeping into the rural areas, and then eventually it just all hardens into concrete and steel, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until the entire seaboards are totally encased in concrete jungle, and then all that starts spreading into the center. And if it all connects, then it just everything dies. So no, we can't. Well, no, I'm not saying that it's wrong. I mean, I kind of understand what you're saying, Ryan, but population control is an illusion too. I mean, it's not. It's energy, right? And if you all systems in the universe, their natural tendency is towards homeostasis. That's why we know that if there's chaos in our social systems and within our culture, it's because someone's shaking the ant farm, right? You can actually take red and black ants and put them in one ant farm and they won't fight. But then if you shake it, they'll all kill each other. And so, okay, well now this guy is like fuck the politics. Just dropping the hard question of all of the sciences. The big Kahuna. What is consciousness exactly? No one has ever been able to answer that question. No one, I mean, almost no one has even attempted to answer that question. It's a really, really crazy thing that we have this awareness, but we don't know what it is. We don't know where it comes from. I've had experiences like, out of the body type stuff that have convinced me that um, it's you don't see through your eyes. Close your eyes. Can you still see shit? You know what I mean? Like there might be pineal gland, which does have rods and cones and is connected to the visual cortex of the brain. Um, so when you close your eyes, maybe you're just looking through your third eye. I know for certain that you can see through it on ayahuasca. Um, but I mean, I talk about this a lot. How we know that consciousness is not generated by the brain. Um, we have self-aware mycelium. Doctor, at least one doctor that had nothing but a sac at the end of his brainstem. No, 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 Ryan Lyon. It's all relative, man. If people were living in a different way, if we weren't, using resources at such an incredible rate and producing pollution at such an incredible rate, then we wouldn't need to reduce the population necessarily. But as things stand, this is not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. The ocean, forget about global warming. I mean, even Elon Musk has acknowledged that it's not proven, no matter what they say, and um, that's a huge debate. But that's another thing that drives me crazy about the right wing. They act like it doesn't matter what we do to the environment. In part, and that's it's even for the right wingers that aren't religious, it's still the influence of religion because, God in the Bible said, I have given you all the seed bearing plants and trees to use, and you have dominion over the animals. And you know what I mean? It's all just for you to exploit. So they feel like, well, God can't be dumb. So, you know what I mean? And so they have this religion motivated they can't accept that environmental damage is a problem because their religion is telling them that God has said it's okay to do these things. Of course, it's just complete dumbfuckery, but that's what that ultimately is rooted in. Uh, it's interesting how they will. They're sort of chameleons with their propaganda because I think the right wing is less and less religious, and so they're having to sort of adapt their style of propaganda. So it still has the old school roots are there, because that's why they were there in the first place, probably. But they're having to sort of shift a little bit how they deliver their manipulation. More minds, more solutions. Sure, John. If they weren't engineering the entire population to be dumber than a fucking brick. When I was in public school in when I was in public school in Fairfax County, we were the number one public school district in the entire world. Um, Now the United States is number 36 or 37 or something, and that doesn't happen on accident. You're not. I know that the U.S. dominance has declined, but not to the extent that their education system should just collapse to that extent. This is very, very deliberate. So sure, if we had a genuine society that was really, really oriented around bringing the best of everyone to fruition, and getting everyone to the expression of their highest potential, then absolutely. But that's got nothing to do with reality at this point. I mean, it's hard for me to even get on social media at this point because the stupidity is just it's unfucking believable. I mean, it's marvelous in its atrocity. It's horrible. I mean, this the here's another right wing guy comparing gay marriage to bestiality. I mean, who the fuck are these people? Um, Holy shit. Yeah. So, I don't know. Somebody else said something that actually made me think of, oh yeah, man, you want to talk about imbalance and equality? You should see this place where I am right now. I mean, you guys can't really see behind me, but I found out yesterday that they normally charge $700 a night for this place, and if this place where we're staying was in like New York or something, I think it'd probably be like $5 grand a month. Um, where we got it for nothing compared to that. Still too expensive for us, but uh, at any rate, it's crazy expensive looking, and there's several buildings on the property, and it's also terrifying because there was an earthquake here a few years ago that killed a bunch of people. It was really bad. And if you go to the back of the property here, like the concrete is actually wired to the back of the house to keep it from falling into the crack behind. I mean, it's like 1,000 feet down. Um, I couldn't believe it, man. I was like, if there's another earthquake while we're here, we're going into the bottom of that canyon for sure. Like if I was in the swimming pool, definitely, if it was as big as the last one, I will plummet into the bottom of that canyon. So that maybe that's why we got it so much cheaper than normal. But the point is that there's street dogs everywhere. When it rained the other day, the whole fucking town smelled like wet dogs. And there are people that make less than $20 a day everywhere, and then they're sandwiched right in with all these $6 million mansions and shit. It's the craziest goddamn thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, you can go out on the back porch and you can see, those like slum apartments that are just like cardboard boxes stacked up 1,000 feet in the air. The top of the mountain across the valley is like that, and there's mountains, or I mean mansions, just spotting the hillside. Um, it's really truly extraordinary. Uh, but I mean, the thing that carries me through all of this is that I'm fairly convinced that our consciousness is eternal. So I don't really worry about dying. We have nuclear holocaust. I think is pretty goddamn likely right now. One thing I thought about today that could avert that is that if Putin is part of the what's a good word for it? I don't want to call it the deep state, but the globalists. Then if you look at the last emergency, the 2 years. I don't want to say it because I don't want to get deleted, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Uh, and how when people started to kind of notice stuff, all of a sudden World War III is like right there, like ready to go. And do you see anything about in the papers or headlines really anymore? Suddenly it just vanished, right? Our freedoms haven't been reinstated, surprise, surprise, in their entirety. But it's a little funny, isn't it? So I think that if we're going to have hope that this isn't really the beginning of nuclear holocaust, that it's probably because they needed something to divert, so that people stop thinking about and don't notice that they've just pulled this sleight of hand, quick exchange, blink of an eye, the old tricks rearranged. Um, so all right, maybe 15 more minutes of this. Did I make a good case for the left and right being trash? I think we, and it's not entirely true. What it is that they're both half and half garbage. And that's totally intentional. That's really what I'm trying to get across here. That if you really adopt either narrative, you're full of shit. And the truth is, it's just like everything else. If you take two extremes, the truth is in the middle. And these political parties and their doctrines were designed to control people and to keep them from seeing the truth. And you can't, it's like, what did that one guy that they always were celebrating for freeing the slaves that actually said that if he could have defeated the South without freeing a single slave, he would have? Abraham Lincoln. Um, you can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So there's some truth in it. So that's what they're doing. They're fooling almost everyone half of the time. Yeah, I can't really comment on that though, Ryan, because they'll seriously delete me. I have to really watch what I say, but that's what I mean about how as soon as people really started to notice that something wasn't right, they come up with something else, like, oh, now it's going to rain nukes. And did you guys notice how Putin just immediately was like, I'll nuke fucking everything, like right away? That's a bit weird, you know what I mean? That shit's supposed to wait until the war's been raging for a while, somebody's done something ridiculous, and there's a response. You don't just immediately just say, like, fuck with me and the whole world is done. Um, it does seem like a scare tactic, and Putin's not stupid. It could just be like when Conor McGregor's fought Khabib, whatever his name is, and he's like, your lips are going to be blue, you're going to be dead. You know what I mean? It's just that kind of the same thing as an MMA fighter trying to get in the head of his opponent and just fuck him up psychologically. uh, so who knows, man? For us though, we just have to remember that we are eternal. All this pain is an illusion. You're just light talking to itself. Um, I can't comment on that either, Mr. Charles. Are you really Mr. Charles, or are you a shill trying to bait me into getting myself deleted? Yeah, actually, I'm gonna do a poll. Speaking of, silence is the voice of complicity, because I need shirts that have designs that don't have N-words or Jesus getting his face pissed on by the devil, which is both of our T-shirt designs so far. I I need something a little bit more tame, I think. So I'm trying to decide between compliance. If you're compliant, you're complicit, and if you're complacent, you're complicit. And my partner is saying that we need to go with, if you're complacent, you're complicit. But I'm thinking if you're compliant, you're complicit is better. So later, you guys don't forget to vote in that poll and help me decide which way to make the T-shirt and the coffee mugs and stuff. What do you mean? What people are already the Borg? I mean, we're half cyborgs as it is. I mean, look how much of your thinking your phone does for you. Um, We definitely have hybridized with the machine to an extent that is a little bit unnerving. Um, yeah, I thought so too. If you're compliant, you're complicit. But she was adamant that um, one on the front, one on the back. Hey, there you go. I don't know if we can do that with the print on demand, but if um, if possible, then that's what we'll do to settle that argument. Nobody thinks they're complacent. Yeah, yeah. If you're compliant, you're complacent. Is probably man. So hopefully, you guys, what I'm working on here is I'm still having trouble with the latency. So hopefully by the time I do the next stream, I do have Ethernet cable here, so I can directly, and I think we have 100 Mbps or whatever, super fast. And then if I can get a pair of headphones that aren't Bluetooth and get rid of the latency, I think we'll finally have the ability to live stream with different windows, and I can share my screen, and we can sort of make this a little bit more professional, have some intro music, and fucking bling my shit out. It's really tiring though, that I I I I had a conversation with someone, I think last night, or this morning, where I was talking about how, because she said something about how, I mentioned ayahuasca. She didn't know what it was, and she said, I don't think I have enough brain cells left for another one of those. And I was like, well, actually, psychedelics cause you to generate new neural pathways and brain cells, and actually even can rejuvenate damaged brain cells, which is something that was thought to be impossible until it was observed that psilocybin could do it. And the look that she gave me is this look that I've been getting from people for decades. Like, it's like I'm right, but they're looking at me like, "Oh, you fucking moron!" Like this condescending kind of smirk. You know what I mean? And like, it does get old, man. Because the stuff that I've been saying on this channel. I've been saying this since I was a little kid, and it's gotten better. But man, I know how discouraging it is too. It really, it's one of the reasons why I didn't trust myself and believe in myself enough to use the things that I knew to the fullest advantage that I possibly could. Because eventually it got in my head that, these people must be right. I've got to be wrong about all this stuff. I'm just crazy or something, and or maybe I'm dumb. Uh, so that's something to contend with. And I mention it in partly because we're talking about trying to escape the narratives that are kind of forced on us by our culture and our family. And it's not as simple as just realizing the truth. You have all sorts of stuff to unpack, and psychological and emotional, cultural obstacles to overcome. Um, if you guys ever heard that Primus song, "To defy the laws of tradition is a crusade only of the brave." Uh, it's absolutely true that we have a lot on our plate in terms of you know taking the bull by the horns in this situation. But it is true that if we don't let the media focus our attention, for example, like if you're left leaning and you think that the right is only the guys with swastikas and the idiots that they would interview for the Trump, in order to get the Trump supporters saying all that stupid shit, they had to go around and find really dumb people. And you can do that on the left too, and they do. Fox does that, and the people on YouTube that are right leaning, they go find the biggest idiots they possibly can. Um, Although I think it is getting easier to find idiots. I'll give you a great example of this. And remember, I'm not trying to take sides on the issue. It's just that if you really believe in something enough to where you're going to go buy a ticket, and you're a lefty, you're going to buy a ticket to go see the Jewish guy. I always forget his name. Facts don't care about your feelings, that guy. The fuck is his name? You guys can tell me, I'm sure. Shapiro. uh, to buy a ticket to go argue with Shapiro, you'd think that you would have thought things through before go up to a podium to try to engage this Harvard educated conservative, right? And there was this one example of this where this girl goes up to the podium, and she's saying that it's it's been scientifically accepted for 70 years that there's not just two genders, and all of the stuff that it sounded like she was just making it up. None of it even sounded true. But Shapiro goes, okay, how old are you? Because you're young enough that it's probably not offensive to ask. And the girl's like 31, and he goes, how come you're not 42? And she almost said, because I'm not biologically 42. But she didn't have to. It was enough that it was like, you idiot. Like how. Yeah, he's hilarious. I mean, actually, I have to admit that Ben Shapiro was the person that made me start to realize, turn me into a right winger, just because I would never adopt any narrative like that. Um, but he's the one that made me realize that they're not as bad as they used to be. I mean, if it had been me having a conversation with the 1997 version of Ben Shapiro, like he did with uh, what is that guy's name? Joe Rogan, about DMT, and the stuff he was saying was totally reasonable. All of his responses to Joe Rogan's position on psychedelics and stuff, it was nothing like what we would have gotten in 1997 from a right winger. So that was really encouraging. That's when I started to realize, wait a minute, something's changed, because they would never have, a right wing pundit in 1995 or whatever never would have said this shit. Um, but having said that, there's still way too much that needs to be worked out. Um, there's still a long way to go. Seeing the left embrace fascism to this degree is pretty disappointing, for me. And so watching everyone fall for the tricks is also really sad, because 20 years ago, a lot of the things that have changed on the right, the left would have been applauding them, you know, um, and like really happy that we had some common ground, uh, and there would have been a lot of enthusiasm. Man, I saw something that really pissed me off the other day with Joe Biden. He's just lying through his fucking teeth, man. Like, oh, I've brought people together, and like he's talking about all this stuff that he had done, and none of it was real. Like none of it. I couldn't believe he said, I've really brought people together. And I thought, what the fuck are you talking about? Does anybody believe this shit? I mean, just absolutely incredible. But it's just, I guess what I'm trying to really get at here is that my hope is that people will realize that the wedge issues that are dividing everyone right now are pretty fucking inconsequential when you compare them to the areas where you've actually made progress, in terms of getting on the same page, like with the issue of personal freedom and drugs and, incarceration and racism. Um, I think a lot of right wingers are full of shit about how little racism they think there is in the right wing. It's still pretty bad, in my opinion. But the reality is that, the left, a lot of Democrats are just more in the closet about it. It's not like it's not there. And, it is a reasonable argument to say what's more insidious, people that are open about it or people that lie and hide things. Um, and, I've tested this, and I've seen people saying shit on Facebook and send them a private message to see what they really think. And, you almost inevitably find out that it's just virtue signaling, just like the right wingers say. you know, it's just crazy, like everybody's right and everybody's wrong. And if people would just put their egos aside, it really is the fucking devil. If people would just put their egos aside and really just listen to each other and stop letting the media and the propaganda engines influence their perceptions so much, they would realize that everyone is really pretty much on the same page. you know, and the shit that we're really fighting and arguing about is just dumb as hell. You know, the right wing needs to just accept that there is too much inequality and that, you know, we have to make some philosophical changes if we're going to make any progress. And the left needs to realize that the government is not their fucking friend. And the reality is that the only way to actually, as like you guys were pointing out earlier, the only way to make this shit actionable is not to try to affect these changes through regulatory agencies and government power, but through changes in the individual consciousness and the collective consciousness, which I think also is easier to do than you might think. And we've actually done a tremendous amount of it. Um, Huge progress has been made socially, I think, culturally. And really, the perception that that hasn't happened and that we've actually. All right, I just lost the internet for a second. I'm not sure where you missed me, so I'll repeat that part. Ryan was saying that in his studies, it seems like black people are way more racist, and the melanin thing is definitely super, super racist. Um, but I actually have had this conversation with some Dominican black guys, and they were of the opinion that black people are the most racist people on earth. It doesn't really matter though. You know, it's it's usually not to the extent that it's a real problem. You know what I mean? It's not something that it's not to the extent that they're going to go around and kill white people or something. And I think the important thing to just be aware of is that the media is definitely manipulating the race situation in the interest of keeping people divided, for sure. And in to credit black people, they seem to be more aware of it than most like middle class white women. Like they seem to have a more, you know, it's like they're trying to tell white people like you're being manipulated. I mean, that's at least from my, you know, looking around on social media, that's what I see. It seems like most black people are way more reasonable about this stuff. They're capable of being honest and objective about it. And they're trying to tell Karen and her friends to just shut the fuck up because they're just being manipulated. So grateful for that. Appreciate your effort being reasonable. But I gotta go. My throat is just, I've been talking for 74 minutes and I have to finish recording something for one of you guys actually so that I can try to get it online within the next couple of days. Please do hit the like button, share, support us on Patreon. You can support through Zelle and PayPal. It's my son crying, and there's cryptocurrency address that you can send money to. We really do appreciate your support. We really need it. I just found out that I have to have way more dental work done than I thought, and that's not fun because it's a huge expense. It's causing me a lot of pain. And by the way, you guys don't put that shit off because all of this suffering that I'm going through now with this is just because I didn't get braces as a kid, basically. Um, Shit catches up with you. I mean, it didn't bother me for 40 years, you know, and now it's become a serious problem. So we appreciate your support because it's very distracting to be in pain all the time. So we'll see you guys again soon. Thank you for spending this time with me, and we'll see you probably tomorrow.